Good morning. Today we can discuss about the general characters of pteridophytes. The term pteridophyte has been derived from two Greek words in which pteron means feather and phyton means plants. That is, they are the plants which possess feather-like leaves. Pteridophytes are also known as vascular cryptogams. Pteridophytes do not possess any true flowers or seeds, and hence they are grouped under the cryptogams. And they possess a vascular tissues like the xylem and phloem, and hence they are known as the vascular cryptogams. They are also known as the snakes of the plant kingdom because snakes are believed to be the first terrestrial organism which possess certain adaptation which help them to live under the terrestrial conditions. Likewise, pteridophytes also possess certain adaptation which help them to live under the terrestrial conditions, and hence they are known as the snakes of the plant kingdom. Around 10,500 species of pteridophytes has been reported, which includes the living pteridophytes and fossil pteridophytes. According to the paleobotanical studies, it is believed that during the Devonian period, pteridophytes were the dominant plants on the earth. And pteridophytes is being positioned in between the bryophytes and phanerogams. Bryophytes are those group of plants which do not possess any vascular tissues, and phanerogams are those plants which possess true seeds, and hence pteridophytes are placed between the bryophytes and phanerogams. Coming to the habitat of the pteridophytes, most of the pteridophytes are terrestrial in nature, but they prefer to grow under moist and cool conditions. They also require water to complete their fertilization process. And some members of the pteridophytes are aquatic in nature, example Azolla, Marsilia, Salvinia, Isoids. And some are epiphytic in nature, that is, epiphytic pteridophytes are those plants which grows on other plant species. The example for epiphytic pteridophyte is Lycopodium. And some pteridophytes are xerophytic in nature. Xerophytics are those plants which grows under extreme drought conditions. And example for the xerophytic pteridophyte is Selaginella. And some pteridophytes attain large size. They are known as tree ferns. Example, Angioteris and Asophilia. And some pteridophytes are halophytic in nature. Halophytes are those plants which grows under high saline conditions. And coming to the smallest pteridophyte, the smallest pteridophyte is reported to be Azolla, and the largest pteridophyte is Cyathea. And certain species belonging to the group Pteridophyte possess a phenomenon known as a resurrection. That is, example, Selaginella lepidophylla is known as a resurrection plant. The phenomenon resurrection means during the drought condition, the plant folds and becomes dry, and during the return of the favorable conditions or the wet condition, the plant unfolds and becomes greenish and carry out the further life stages. And this phenomena is seen in the pteridophytic plants. Coming to the plant body of pteridophytes. Pteridophyte possesses two generations, that is sporophytic generation and gametophytic generation. The sporophytic generation is represented by the sporophytic plant body which is diploid in nature, and the gametophytic generation is represented by means of the gametophyte which is haploid in nature. But both these plant bodies are independent, that is they are not physically dependent. The main plant body of the pteridophyte is sporophyte, that is diploid in nature. The sporophytic plant body can be differentiated into root, stem and leaf-like structures. Coming to the roots, roots are mostly adventitious in nature and they possess monopodial or dichotomous branching. Dichotomous branching is those branching in which the two branches arise from a single point. Similarly, the stem also possesses the monopodial or dichotomous branching, and usually in pteridophytes, the stem is usually represented as rhizome. And coming to the leaves, there are different types of leaves present in different species of the pteridophytes. That is, the leaves may be either microphyllous. Microphyllous means they will be smaller in size and will be scaly. And example is Equisetum. Here we can see the leaves, scaly leaves, we can see the scaly leaves. And coming to the next type is a megaphyllous. Megaphyllous means they possess large leaves with petioles and compoundly arranged leaves. And example is a adiantum. And some species are sessile in nature, that is they will not possess any peduncle. That is the leaves will be attached to the stem directly. And example is Lycopodium. And certain species of the pteridophyte shows a special phenomenon known as a circinate vernation. Circinate vernation is a coiling of the younger leaves in order to protect the growing tip. And this is usually found in the higher pteridophytes and some primitive gymnosomes. Here we can see the coiled leaves. That is, the younger leaf tips will be coiled inwards to protect the growing leaf tip. As I have told earlier, The pteridophytes are known as a vascular cryptogams because they possess a vascular tissues. The vascular tissues are present in both the stem and root. It consists of xylem and phloem. Steel will be present. Steel is a central core of the vascular tissues. Different types of steel can be seen in the different species of the pteridophytes. Coming to Lycopodium, the steel is protosteel, that is the steel will be without the central pith. And coming to Equisetum, the steel is siphonosteel, that is the central pith will be present. Coming to Pteris, it will be dictyosteel. Dictyosteels are those steel which process the leaf gaps. And coming to Angioteris, it is polysteel, that is the polysteel means that the steel is differentiated into many vascular strands. And here the cambium is absent and hence they do not possess any secondary growth. Coming to the reproduction of pteridophytes. The pteridophytes reproduce asexually by means of the haploid spores. These spores are produced in certain specialized structure called sporangia. The sporangia is usually present on the ventral surface of the specialized leaves called sporophylls. Coming to the aquatic forms, the sporophylls or the sporangia are present inside a specialized structure called the sporocarp. Here we can see the aquatic pteridophytes, Marsilia and Salvinia. Here we can see the sporocarp, and inside the sporocarp the sporangia is present, and these sporangia consist of the sporangial mother cells, and these sporangial mother cells undergoes meiosis and produces a haploid spores. Based on the size and nature of the spore produced by the pteridophytes, they are categorized into two groups. First one is a homosporous pteridophytes and other one is a heterosporous pteridophytes. Homosporous pteridophytes are those which produce only a single type of spore and a single type of sporangia. They produce a smaller spores by means of the meiotic division. And coming to the heterosporous pteridophytes, they produce two types of spores and two types of sporangia. One will be smaller in size and other will be larger in size. The larger sporangium is known as a megasporangium which produces the megaspores, and the smaller sporangium is a microsporangium which produces the microspores. Here we can see the microsporangium and megasporangium. The microsporangium consists of the microspore mother cell and they undergo meiosis and produces the microspores. And here comes the megasporangium. The megasporangium produces the megaspores by means of the meiotic division of the megasporangial mother cells. And in the case of the sporangial development, there are two types of development which is possessed by the sporangium. First one is leptosporangiate, that is the sporangium will be originating from a single initial cell. It is known as a leptosporangiate development. And next one is a eusporangiate development. Here the sporangium will be developed from a group of initial cells and it is said to be the eusporangiate development. And coming to the sporophylls, as I have said earlier, sporophylls are the specialized structure which process the sporangium, and this sporangium or the sporophylls will be uniformly distributed or it will be aggregated into a compact cone known as a strobile. For example, Equisetum, here we can see that the sporophylls are aggregated to form a cone-like structure known as a strobile. And coming to the ferns, the sporangia are seen on the undersurface of the leaves and they are known as a sori or sorus, that is they forms a clusters. Here we can see different types of sori in different species of the pteridophytes. The spores are thick walled and it is divided into outer exane and inner intane. And the haploid spores produced by the sporangia get dispersed and they germinate to form the gametophyte plant body which is a haploid in nature. The homosporous type of in the homosporous type of pteridophytes, the development of gametophyte is exosporic, that is the development occurs outside the spore wall. And coming to the heterosporic type, the development of gametophyte is endosporic, that means development will be within the spore wall. And the gametophytic phase is represented by the prothallus. The prothallus is more or less similar to the thalloid structures. The prothallus is simple, green and it possesses several rhizoids which help them to attach the substratum. And in the case of homosporous pteridophytes, the prothallus are monoecious, that is the antheridia and the archegonae will be developed on the same prothallus, that is we can see the male and female sex organs on the same prothallus. But in the case of heterosporous pteridophytes, the prothalli are always dioecious. That is, they produce two types of spores. As I have said earlier, heterosporic pteridophyte produces two types of spores known as microspores and the megaspores. These microspores germinate to form the male prothalli and the megaspore germinate to form the female prothalli. So, in the heterosporic conditions, always the prothalli will be dioecious. The antheridium and archegonium represents the male and female sex organ. The antheridia produces the anthrozoids. The anthrozoids are the male gametes and the archegonium produces the egg. Always the fertilization takes place only in the presence of water. The water is an essential factor for the fertilization because the anthrozoids requires water to swim towards the archegonium in order to carry out the fertilization. After the fertilization, there forms the zygote or the oospore. It is the first stage which represents the sporophytic generation. Here we can see a green prothallus in which the young sporophyte is being developed. And coming to the life cycle of the pteridophytes. The pteridophyte shows a heteromorphic alternation of generation. Alternation of generation means it possesses two phases, the sporophytic phase or the sporophytic generation and the gametophytic phase or the gametophytic generation. That is, the sporophytic generation consists of the diploid sporophytic plant body and the gametophytic generation represents the haploid gametophytic plant body. In the case of homosporous pteridophytes, only a single type of spore is produced. Here we can see the sporophyte, that is a main plant body of the pteridophytes. The sporophyte consists of the sporangium. They are the specialized structures. Inside the sporangium, we can see the sporangial mother cells, and the sporangial mother cells undergoes meiosis and produces spores. These spores germinate to form the gametophyte. The gametophyte produces a female and male sex organs, and they produces the egg and anthrozoids. These egg and anthrozoids fuse together and forms the zygote. The zygote represents the first stage of the sporophytic generation, and as such the life cycle goes on. Coming to the heterosporic pteridophytes, we can see two types of spores. That is, the main plant body sporophyte consists of sporangium, and this sporangium undergoes meiosis and produces two types of spores, that is microspores and megaspores. These microspores germinate to form the male gametophyte, and the megaspores germinate to form the female gametophyte. And the female gametophyte produces the egg, and the male gametophyte produces the anthrozoids, and the fertilization carries out and the zygote will be formed. The zygote represents the first stage of the sporophytic generation, and as such the life cycle goes on. So the difference between the homosporic and heterosporic life cycle is that in the homosporic life cycle only a single type of spore will be produced, and in the heterosporic condition two types of spores will be produced, that is a microspores and megaspore. Here comes to the end of the general characters of the pteridophytes. Thank you.